All right, welcome back. Today we're continuing our Let's Learn ABA series with group contingencies. Group contingencies are a very effective intervention to use when you're dealing with small or even large groups. BCBAs must know the different types of group contingencies for their exam. RBTs should at least be aware of group contingencies, especially if you work in a clinic or a school setting. So, as usual, if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out rbtexamreview.com for all of our study materials or bcbastudy.com for our BCBA materials. Questions, comments, let us know. Work hard, study hard. Let's learn ABA. Starting with our introduction, as usual, let's simplify it. Group contingencies. Contingencies are applied to groups of learners. Typically in ABA, especially if you are an RBT or you work casework, everything is one-on-one, right? We work with one individual learner. However, we have three very effective group contingencies that we can use when we do have to work with multiple learners. We have independent group contingencies, dependent group contingencies, and interdependent group contingencies. So we're going to go through each one of these one by one and explain what they are. So, what is group contingency? Contingency is consequence contingent on one or more members of the group. And we'll explain in a second what that means. Because you're saying, well, if it's a group contingency, why would it only be contingent on one person? Well, there's a very specific procedure for that. Group contingencies can save time. One consequence can apply to an entire group. So if you have 20 students, it can be very difficult having 20 different contingencies. A group contingency can save you a lot of time in that situation. As a consequence of that, your workload may be reduced. Instead of delivering 20 different reinforcers for 20 different contingencies, you've got one contingency in place for all 20 students, and that's the way you run your classroom or your clinic. Use when individual contingencies are impractical. You can use peer influence or peer monitoring as part of your group contingency. Peer influence plays a huge role in a group contingency, as you might expect, especially as kids get older. Think about the pressure they put on one another to succeed and how they treat them if they fail. And then you can facilitate social interactions, especially with our interdependent group contingency. Once the learners start working towards a common goal, you can really start to see social bonds start to form. So, which of the following is not a type of group contingency? A, dependent, B, interdependent, C, codependent, or D, independent? Well, dependent is definitely one. That is our hero procedure. Interdependent is definitely one. The entire group has to perform the contingency. Independent, each learner is responsible for themselves. Codependent is not one of our group contingencies. So let's start with the independent group contingency. In the independent group contingency, reinforcement is delivered only to members who meet the criterion. If you have 100 members and you're running an independent group contingency, each one of those members needs to complete the criterion to get reinforcement. Not reliant on the partner. We're not reliant on the whole group. We're reliant on each individual within inside the group. So the contingency is available to the entire group, but the individuals are responsible for themselves. Often we pair this with contingency contracts or token reinforcement systems. So if you look at our handy little chart, A, we state criterion for all group members. B, the criterion is met. C, SR for each member, positive reinforcement for each member achieving criterion, right? Not all members, not some, each one who achieves the criterion reinforcement. For example, each student who spells 9 out of 10 words correctly on this test Friday will earn 10 bonus points. That is an independent group contingency. Question, which of the following is not an independent group contingency? We're looking for something here where we're either reliant on somebody else, okay, or reliant on a whole group. So A, everyone must walk in a straight line to earn a prize. Is this independent? Well, if you've got 15 people in a line, everyone must walk in a straight line and only 14 people do, you're not going to earn that prize. A is not. A is interdependent. B, whoever finds 5 Easter eggs earns candy. Yes, that is reliant on the one person. C, whenever you finish your homework, you can go to recess. Yes, assuming you is plural, right? We're talking to a group here. Whenever you finish your homework, you go to recess. You're not waiting on anybody else. Same with D. Once you finish your meal, you do not need to wait for your siblings to leave the table. Independent group. Next, dependent group contingency. Okay, this is a common one, but we have to be considerate when we use this type of group contingency. So the consequence is dependent on one person or a small group. If you've got 25 kids, might use a dependent group contingency, and one child in the class, rest of the class is reliant on that person. Or you pick 4 kids out of the 25, and everybody is reliant on them to complete the contingency. A lot of pressure. So if an individual performs the behavior, the group earns the reward, or if the small group performs the behavior, the whole group earns the reward. If not, the reward is not delivered. There's no other way around it. Can't change the contingency in the middle when it's not working. Okay? You need to let it play out and then start a new contingency. That's why you have to be very smart about what contingency you pick. Don't pick a kid who maybe you know won't be successful, or maybe you know doesn't do well as a leader to do this. You're putting a lot of pressure on them, and the likelihood of them failing might be increased, leading to a lot of other issues. So you have to be smart with the dependent group contingency. Often referred to as the hero procedure, because the person that we're relying on is our hero to get reward. And it can facilitate positive or negative social interaction. So our little chart, A, criterion stated for one individual or small group. Criterion met, the whole group gets the reinforcement. For example, when all students at table 2 finish their math assignments, the class will have 5 minutes of free time. So just table 2, right? Read that carefully. This is a small group dependent group contingency. When students at table 2 finish their math, the whole class will have 5 minutes of free time. Think about that. Understand where the issues arise. What are the positives of this? Think about it for a second. Question: when using a dependent group contingency, what should you consider? A, how many individuals must complete the behavior criterion? Sure, if you're going to use a small group dependent group contingency, how small is that group going to be? How are you assigning that group? What are your rules, right? B, the potential side effects of placing the blame on student. It can be very detrimental to make one person the hero and they fail, especially if the reward is valuable. You have to be careful here, right? Be smart. See if the reward is valuable to the hero. What do we mean by that? I mean, if you pick Dave to be the hero, Dave doesn't care about the reward. Where's Dave's motivation coming from? If he doesn't care if the other kids get the reward, it's going to fail. So whoever you're picking be the hero, whether it be one person or small group, make sure that reward is valuable. So what do we need to consider? Well, A, B, and C. So D, all the above. Now, the interdependent group contingency, this is the most common, I would say. All members of the group must meet the criterion. Very straightforward, right? You got 20 kids, all 20 must meet it. 10 kids, all 10 must meet it. 1,000, all 1,000 must meet it. Potential value over the other group contingencies because they force learners towards a common goal. Hey, look, I know you might not like table B and table C, but A, B, and C all have to work together in order to get the reward. The good behavior game, which you might have heard of, it's in Cooper, is an interdependent group contingency. So team versus team with less marks wins. Teams can also win a reward if they have fewer than a specified amount of marks. You can see it makes these students or these children bond together and work towards a common goal. So looking at our chart, A, a criterion stated for all group members. B, the criterion is met. C, reinforcement for whole group if all members of the group achieve criterion. For example, each student must complete at least 4 science projects by the 6th week in the term in order for class to go on the field trip. Each student, all students, okay? Interdependent. What is an advantage of the interdependent group contingency? A, you're able to task the strongest student with completing the criterion. What group contingency would that be? Dependent, right? You can make the strongest student the hero. B, each student is responsible for themselves. Is each student responsible for themselves in interdependent group contingency? They are not. That would be A, independent group contingency. And then C, students must work towards a shared goal. This is when we're all working together towards one common goal. D, all the above? No, C is our answer. So, components, what do you need to think about when implementing group contingencies? First, choose an effective reward. Just like Any other reinforcement system, if the reward isn't effective, you're going to have some problems. Determine what behavior will change and what other behaviors might be impacted. So, again, what behaviors are we trying to change? And if we're using group contingencies, socially, how is that going to affect all these other kids, right? Mentally, how is it going to affect them? A lot goes into these group contingencies. Set an appropriate performance criteria, so not too easy, not too hard. It's just like setting any other goal, right, for individuals. Combine with other procedures when appropriate, differential reinforcement procedures, extinction, punishment, etc. Select the best contingency for the situation. That's going to be on you in your assessment. And then make sure you monitor individual and group performance. Don't just set out a group contingency all the time and forget about individualization. Still important. So, wrapping up group contingencies, contingencies are applied to groups of learners. Independent group contingencies, each learner is responsible for themselves. Dependent group contingencies is our hero procedure. Interdependent group contingencies, the whole group has to complete the contingency. Fantastic. Please check out bcbastudy.com or rbtexamreview.com for our exam prep materials. As always, questions, comments, please let us know. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.